Huawei's $11 billion clean energy risk compels business owners to strengthen grid strategy and secure utility growth. You must immediately recognize that Huawei's digital power division has quietly engineered a massive $11 billion clean energy business that actively reshapes and disrupts global power markets. This aggressive, high-scale expansion places the company's clean energy segment at an operational scale that directly rivals Tesla's energy segment. The accelerating global energy transition demands your full attention, as worldwide renewable electricity capacity additions exploded past a record 740 gigawatts during 2024 alone. You face a market where annual worldwide investment in clean energy has climbed beyond $2 trillion, a staggering sum that significantly outpaces traditional fossil fuel supply deployments. Your strategic survival depends on understanding that hardware engineering competencies can be rapidly transferred across heavy industries when organizations identify highly lucrative adjacent technology markets. L-Impact Solutions explicitly warns that focusing strictly on top-line revenue metrics causes market analysts to fundamentally underestimate critical, underlying structural risks. The scale of the challenge is massive, given that global utility infrastructure requires a staggering cumulative investment of more than $22 trillion by the year 2050 to maintain stability. As a decisive business leader, you cannot afford to evaluate strategic utility providers based on sales volume instead of regulatory resilience, cybersecurity maturity, and long-term capital sustainability. Emerging markets understandably prioritize cheap, affordable electricity because local energy availability directly dictates your industrial competitiveness and regional GDP growth. Look at Latin America for context. Brazil already derives more than 85% of its entire electricity generation from various expanding renewable sources. Selecting your equipment suppliers primarily based on low upfront capital cost is a dangerous trap that exposes your operations to extreme long-term liabilities. These critical operational risks, including component maintenance, software patches, and cybersecurity vulnerabilities, will persist for 20 to 30 years, far outlasting the initial procurement cycle. You must accept the reality that critical energy infrastructure has become an active battleground deeply intertwined with aggressive national security policies. Global cyber incidents targeting major utilities have increased substantially over recent years, making blind trust in unverified hardware a catastrophic business hazard. Your operators are now forced to defend millions of connected operational technology devices that require continuous monitoring and advanced software protection. L-Impact Solutions notes that future market access will depend heavily on ironclad regulatory compliance, industrial cybersecurity, and data governance rather than manufacturing volume alone. You should closely watch the intense domestic market dynamics within China, which currently accounts for roughly 80% of global solar module manufacturing capacity. Fierce domestic price wars among competing inverter, battery, and equipment manufacturers continue to heavily compress standard industry margins and threaten vendor survival. Real-world financial data shows that average battery pack prices have plummeted by approximately 90% since 2010, which benefits buyers but pressures long-term supplier viability. Suppliers that fail to differentiate themselves through proprietary software, digital services, and robust engineering support face severe profitability challenges and eventual obsolescence. You must scrutinize vendor concentration with absolute discipline to minimize your organization's exposure to sudden geopolitical shocks and technology risks. A single utility-scale battery energy storage project is expected to remain operational for 15 to 20 years under normal commercial contract terms. Critical grid transmission infrastructure frequently remains in active service for 40 to 60 years, making procurement decisions strategic national assets rather than ordinary purchases. Large-scale renewable developments across demanding regions frequently involve massive capital commitments exceeding $500 million to several billion dollars per project. These massive capital deployments require you to maintain deep stakeholder confidence regarding environmental compliance, indigenous community engagement, and transparent ESG reporting. L-Impact Solutions emphasizes that lifecycle economics remain consistently and dangerously underestimated across the entire global renewable energy sector. While modern inverter efficiencies now regularly exceed 98%, your long-term operational expenditures deserve far deeper financial scrutiny than simple component calculations. Multi-decade asset life cycles require continuous spending on firmware upgrades, predictive maintenance, spare parts, and strict grid compliance to avoid asset failure. Real-world industry studies indicate that ongoing life cycle operating costs can represent 20% to 35% of total project expenditure over time. Upfront discount pricing frequently leads to much weaker financial performance and unexpected capital drains over the actual lifespan of energy assets. Sustainable infrastructure leadership ultimately depends on the quality of your governance, cybersecurity resilience, regulatory adaptability, and operational transparency. You should immediately implement comprehensive resilience scorecards rather than comparing simple top-line revenue metrics when auditing your technology vendors. Modernizing your traditional procurement frameworks is the single most effective way to mitigate accelerating, highly unpredictable energy transition risks. Your vendor evaluations must heavily weigh corporate financial strength, engineering depth, software maturity, and long-term regional technical support over purchase price. Utilities must actively diversify strategic technology suppliers wherever it is technically practical to protect transmission networks from single-point failures. Diversified supplier portfolios drastically reduce operational disruption risks while strengthening your corporate procurement flexibility and pricing leverage during global shocks. You ought to establish clear corporate procurement policies that strictly limit excessive, dangerous dependence on any individual technology vendor. Prioritizing strict interoperability standards allows your developers to expand systems in the future without replacing existing, highly expensive core infrastructure. Governments need to implement transparent, technology-neutral regulatory frameworks that apply equally to every single supplier regardless of their country of origin. Mandatory regulatory requirements should encompass internationally recognized cybersecurity standards, software integrity verification, independent equipment testing, and supply chain traceability. Predictable regulatory environments protect critical investments by reducing long-term policy uncertainty for institutional lenders and infrastructure investors. Energy developers must aggressively strengthen financial due diligence processes across the entire infrastructure asset lifecycle. You should design investment models that explicitly budget for battery degradation, inverter replacement schedules, insurance premiums, and financing sensitivity analysis. Comprehensive lifecycle financial planning significantly improves long-term investment performance while completely eliminating unexpected, emergency capital requirements. You need to ensure that digital grid infrastructure receives capital investment comparable to physical hardware assets to maximize network intelligence. Modern electricity networks increasingly rely on artificial intelligence, digital twins, and industrial IoT sensors to analyze millions of operational data points daily. L-Impact Solutions points out that predictive maintenance can reduce equipment downtime by a remarkable 30% to 50%. Utilizing advanced digital asset monitoring platforms simultaneously lowers your total ongoing maintenance expenditures by 10% to 40% while extending asset life. Developing specialized workforce capability must become a primary strategic priority for your organization to counter structural industry labor shortages. The International Energy Agency estimates millions of additional skilled workers will be required globally across electricity networks, battery systems, and digital controls. You should actively partner with educational institutions to expand certifications for battery technicians, grid operation programs, and advanced software engineers. Financial institutions are rapidly modernizing infrastructure lending frameworks to incorporate strict cybersecurity preparedness and operational resilience indicators into credit assessments. Showcasing high operational resilience, transparent governance, and strict data security directly lowers a project's overall credit risk profile and financing costs. You should establish integrated executive governance structures that combine engineering, finance, procurement, legal affairs, sustainability, and enterprise risk management. Successful organizations will be those capable of making coordinated, rapid decisions across complex geopolitical, technical, and financial dimensions simultaneously. Building resilient energy infrastructure requires you to take proactive, preventive actions long before assets ever become operational on the grid. Utilities must conduct annual cybersecurity penetration testing, quarterly supplier risk assessments, and periodic operational stress simulations to find hidden vulnerabilities. Outages involving critical grid infrastructure can easily generate catastrophic regional economic losses ranging from millions to billions of dollars. You should make supply chain resilience a permanent organizational policy instead of a temporary, reactive crisis management response. Maintaining a strategic component inventory that covers 6 to 12 months of critical equipment protects your operations from geopolitical disruptions and logistics constraints. Your management team must implement structured technology lifecycle management programs to counter accelerating technical debt and operational failures. Solar facilities often remain operational beyond 30 years, requiring continuous firmware upgrades, cybersecurity patch management, and component health monitoring. Transmission assets can exceed 50 years of active service, making long-term engineering oversight and disciplined asset management absolutely non-negotiable. Governments should vigorously strengthen regional energy cooperation to improve collective, long-term electricity security and resource optimization. Coordinated emergency response planning, cross-border transmission projects, and harmonized technical standards balance electricity supply across larger geographic areas. You must treat climate resilience as a mandatory engineering requirement rather than an optional corporate sustainability objective. Climate adaptive engineering actively protects your infrastructure availability against extreme heat waves, sudden floods, severe storms, and wildfires. Executive oversight should rely on real-time dashboards that continuously monitor infrastructure availability exceeding 99% and rapid cybersecurity incident response times. L-Impact Solutions concludes that future resilience is determined by the discipline of governance maintained over the next 20 to 40 years rather than current revenue. If you prioritize diversification, strict regulatory compliance, and lifecycle asset management, dominating the future power market becomes inevitable. Is your energy strategy resilient enough for the next grid disruption? Comment below. For more strategic analyses, visit our business consultancy website, link in the description below. Thank you.